Hi, everybody. We are back on air after a quick experiment, and on the Kansas plains. Oh, DM Scotty's here with us. You know what? I'm gonna send him an invite too if he wants to join in. He's a friend of the channel, most certainly. We are talking about City State of the Invincible Overlord. This is a module that is. What would be your word to describe it? What's that?
It's a mega dungeon.
It is. Well, or almost like a mega city, also.
Yeah.
Man, just crazy.
It's kind of if IKEA was a city.
If IKEA was a city.
Yeah.
Yeah, where do you even start with this? I feel like we're not even going to be able to even touch all the detail as much as just, hey, here's what this even is. And there have been many printings. On take one of this, we were talking about how the old original Judges Guild was printed on this like super thin, like almost like tissue paper that makes them collectible these days.
Yeah. I think these are coming for at least $100 for most of these anymore, for the Judges Guild stuff.
And then it also came with a map that was 4 pages folded, still not large enough to even be able to read. This thing was like so much to it.
Type. Yeah, I was out there today with a magnifying glass trying to read the map.
Yeah. When I printed the PDF, I separately printed even just all the different maps. It comes with a bunch of, like you said, mega dungeons, a map of the surrounding areas. It is, I mean, you could spend dozens of sessions just in this city alone. Hey, Scotty! We were just started talking about the...
Hey, guys.
Just talking about the city state of the Invincible Overlord. Do you have any affinity, experience, or other interactions with this mega module?
He's shaking his head.
Scotty's in stunned silence.
Sorry, I had YouTube on, and so it was, I was getting this weird
echo
like,
chamber, time travel.
Yeah. It was like, oh, wait a minute, what?
Who's talking?
What's happening here?
So we were just saying those old Judges Guild ones, they're printed on like the tissue paper. So it makes them very collectible if you still have them that are in decent shape.
If they survived, yeah.
Yeah, if they've survived. But this thing is for, I want to say it's maybe about 100 pages with maps.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to at random pick a, let's see, in the Royal Cavalry, Captain Kriggs, Captain Richter, like it lays out for you pretty much any character, any place, whatever you can imagine has been dumped into this city state.
With every copper piece.
Yeah, seriously.
And every civilian is armed.
Yeah, it's a dangerous place. It's like Arizona. Just everyone has a gun. Everybody.
Yeah, it's if I guess they say a polite society is a well-armed society, and this must be one polite society. It's like every street urchin has a claymore.
Yeah. So I'm somewhat at a loss of even how to start talking about this module. The setup for it is there's this Invincible Overlord that his alignment is lawful evil, leaning toward good.
Yeah, I saw that.
My nose is bleeding. But anyhow, he employs all alignment types. So this is one of those guys where like whoever's going to help him out is kind of who he keeps in his pocket, it would seem like. There's a chronology of kings. I wonder if George R.R. Martin just ripped all this off to come up with Game of Thrones or something.
Yeah, he might have.
Is there a section on a eunuch and Littlefinger?
Yeah. And even the names feel kind of that way too.
Yeah.
I guess we should probably start talking about Grunting Udina, the belly dancer. I just think that's a name.
Yeah,
I would like to see a belly dancer named Grunting Udina.
There are truly hundreds of NPCs in here. And you pick a street. Yeah, it could be. I mean, you pick a street and there's all the who's on there, what they're doing. So you have the actual city. And then there's this other part that's like a dwarven castle type setting, which is really interesting too. And what's the relation with that? It's just sort of in the area, or it's a place the players can go to?
I wasn't real sure reading it today. I didn't quite understand. It's almost like a whole nother area or something going on.
Yeah. Now, often Kemper will send his experimental baseline test of the Brute Squad. Yeah. If you had sent them in, they wouldn't emerge for a few years. This thing has so much detail, like stuff to explore. So they're probably lost inside the city still.
And also,
it's kind of interesting too. Like that's kind of like a time capsule, for how games were run and thought of at the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm not bashing on it. I'm just saying that I'm not going to make, even if I make a city, I'm not going to make 500 NPCs to go in the city. I'm going to have a few, important NPCs. And if they go somewhere that's off track, I'll just make one up, pull a name off a list, make one up, roll on a chart or something, make one up to go with it. I'm not going to say, Aunt Bertha works in the apothecary, you know what I'm saying? And then George, George R.R. works in the, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to list out every single, of that kind of thing, in my notes, so it's a different way of it's really a different way of running and thinking about, how much detail you're going to put in your game.
I'm guilty of writing one of those when I was about 15 years old, and I still have it. Actually, every character has, how much they have, how much gold they have, and silver pieces, and every character has a complete set of stats. So,
were you supposed to be like in science class or something when you wrote this, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was bored, but I think I've still got it around here somewhere. And but you can see like. A street urchin might have what their constitution score is. You can find it.
So this is from the Mayfair. I don't know if it was like the 20th anniversary or so. It was a re-release of it with some updates and kind of expanding the world. But Gary Gygax wrote a little intro. He talks a little bit about how in the early days, D&D, which happy birthday D&D, January of 74 is when it was released, or the first copy sold. And then he says this in regards to around 1977. I recall churning out dungeon level after dungeon level in 73 and 74, or a little bit further back, sacrificing sleep, let alone other pursuits, in order to have fresh territory for my burgeoning body of players to adventure in. By 1975, I was doing detailed outdoor scenarios between pages of manuscript for the Greyhawk supplement. That city had by then, I must say, grown from a single-page sketch map to a 4-city map, but without too many details. And then he gets into this, kind of like you made me think of this, Scotty, when you talk about all the detail. Like most DMs then, I prefer to do a lot of instant creativity, winging it in the vernacular, or else just didn't have the time or energy to spend hours and hours needed to do a truly detailed town. Game masters were chained to production of material by their players, and the people at TSR were likewise running to keep up with the demands for new product by DMs and players alike. Judges Guild perceived the need and stepped in to fill that void. And boy, they sure did. Like,
another question for you guys. Do you guys listen to Matt Colville?
Yeah, I've heard some. He YouTuber. I've heard a number of his kind of takes on different philosophical RPG items. Yeah.
Yeah, he talks about his campaign, and he likes to run modules a lot. And he talked about his campaign. He has a person called the Invincible Overlord. So I wonder if that's directly from this, or if it's like just inspired by it.
I wonder that, because I guess I have seen him mention that before.
In a homage, maybe pushing trademark limits.
Or maybe there's a lot of it he's used, out of that. I don't know. I don't have the supplement, but
you gotta go get it. It's just...
I used to have some of the old Judges Guild stuff, when I was a youngster. But it's been long, over the course of marriage and kids and all this has been long lost to the moves of time.
Somebody probably used the pages to blow their nose with or something.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I think the cool thing about the Judges Guild stuff was, even in the day when we were first playing Dungeons and Dragons, it was kind of subversive a little bit. And within the Dungeons and Dragons community, Judges Guild stuff was even more subversive. So it really felt like you were kind of out there, which was kind of neat.
Because it wasn't out there enough.
Yeah, this was pretty far out there, and I remember seeing all this stuff in my game store, and it was, like I said, it was printed on the cheap paper, and it was, I think I bought something, and I remember my grandma took a look at it, and she said, "How much did you pay for that?" And I said, "Oh, I think $5." And she said, "Was that put out in somebody's garage?" Which it probably was, actually, reading about
it probably was, actually.
Yeah, I think was it Bob Bledsoe that started Judges Guild?
Yes, yeah, I believe so.
I think he was literally working out of his living room at the time.
Well, and the brown boxes I know were assembled in Mr. Gygax's basement, hand assembled, the first couple thousand copies. So
I guess my grandma was right. It was pretty funny, but it's and it's kind of amazing. This stuff was coming out before the TSR modules were even coming out.
So I'm just going to pick a random NPC here. This is a horse trainer named Curly Curdmall. Curly can train horses to obey whistle commands. See horse market command table. Boy, if there's one thing I was missing, it was a horse market command table. In 20 weeks, less the intelligence of the horse in weeks. Being extremely lazy, he will only take one order at a time and isn't ready to work again until he has wasted the fee, 255 gold pieces, in riotous living, 1 to 6 weeks. Who could track all this? It's like it was waiting for the birth of computer programs so you could turn this into like a SimCity type, just like let it run itself or something. It's insane.
Exactly. It kind of became that, those things kind of became, your brain was the computer, and all this written down material was like the program, you would run it. So
just think, this was done before word processors. This was done on a typewriter.
Click clack, click clack,
click clack. Just think of the carriage returns this guy made. I think he burned a Smith Corona out doing it.
Okay, now we're in the Wild Boar Tavern, which is, of course, on the Street of Shadows, where there's a 30% probability of a robbery attempt if you're alone, minus 10% per comrade.
Oh, wow.
The Wild Boar Tavern. His name is Garrick One Eye. He has 10 barmaid slaves. Hit dice, blah, 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 daggers. 4 scullery slaves. short swords, two-handed sword. Oh, see, but this is all about him, but this doesn't talk about necessarily his backstory as much. What's it say here? So it's kind of all over the place a little bit. At the Lightgale Inn, there's Huggy Sobrun and Warbling Sobrun. These two brothers returned from campaigning with a considerable fortune and soon after bought the inn for an amazing sum. Some gossipers claim they looted an ancient temple whose location the brothers will never reveal. Roast duck, 3 copper piece. Spider pudding, 1 copper piece. It's like and I think if I looked at the credits right, by Blob Bledsaw and Bill Owen, 2 authors did this entire thing. It's incredible.
Yeah. I think my favorite's the Crummy Crab Tavern, which sounds like something out of SpongeBob.
Crummy Crab? Maybe that's where they got Krusty Krab.
Yeah.
Crummy Crab, yeah.
and one of the best brothel names, the Happy Harpy. I really like that one.
That's fun.
Yeah. A lot of this is pretty fun. I think that's one of the good things about it. Also, every shop and encounter has a campaign hook or a adventure hook, which is pretty awesome.
Wow, yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah, so there's got to be 1,000 adventure hooks in here with
wow,
the city, which is really pretty cool, and I think that makes it probably worth it. I think one of the downsides is it really is very disorganized.
Yeah, is it?
It has a decent index, but trying to find stuff on the map, I sat there and just searched in vain for about a half hour today.
So the index, you have a street index,
which is helpful.
Yeah, and then you have a general index. But yeah, this would have to be, I mean, unless you have a photographic memory, which part of me wonders if to write in this much detail, if it is somebody that like they could just remember and rattle all this stuff off. You would have to have a fairly patient group of players to be like, oh, wait a second, what street are you on? Okay, okay, you're on one second. A Tempest Street, and there's a loan shark, and his name's Pretender Sabrakern, and so like, how would you even prep for this?
Oh, let me cross-reference table 10D to see what.
Yeah, where was the horse command table? No, market. The market horse command table.
Yeah.
Finally.
In the field.
There's a whole splat book on horse commands.
Yeah. And of course, by the time you do all that and the players are sitting there scratching their head, you could have just invented something fun that fit with the adventure. You know what I'm saying?
Wing it till you fly.
Yeah.
There's some poems in the back.
It's got everything.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry, the speaker of the house popped in. Okay, let me roll a death save here. So for those who are watching this later, it is what we are calling the polar vortex of 2019, which means right now in the Twin Cities, it's a balmy -25 Fahrenheit. How about you in Ohio, Scotty?
Yeah, what state?
Oh boy, it's pretty darn cold. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is right now, but it's going to get in the negatives, I think, tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got one car, the Camry, or I call it the Camborghini. I just gave up on trying to get the thing to start. Like the battery just can't even crank.
Oh,
but school's canceled, so there's kids sleeping over. There's like it's a little nuts. So
we should have done G2 tonight. That's probably the module we should have done.
Yeah, a good ice setting.
Yeah, Scotty could have done some ice terrain for us.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a couple that was getting married, and they were having a Viking wedding, and this was just last month. So they wanted me to run something for their wedding. So I thought, well, I'm not great on Viking history and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, let's run something that's primitive and everything, but tribal, but not when I get too literal with the Viking thing. So I ran Hankerin's Blood and Snow, his Blood and Snow ICRPG module, and they had a blast. Like there was a lot of people it was a ton of people. There were like 10 people. So it was like I had to run for like 10 people. So that was crazy. I think that's the most I've ever done. But it was a lot of fun, actually. And the Blood and Snow thing is really, you kind of do roll on tables like it's, like things happen as you travel. It's kind of you travel and there's things that happen and you just kind of roll on tables to set up, what happens. So that was fun. It's not usually how I play, but, I just thought it'd be fun to, because it's about survival. It's more about survival than, an actually like crafted story, a finely crafted story or anything. Although there was a story elements to it. The journey was interesting. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that. And it was fun playing that primitive, of people and thinking about how they, act and survive. And, because they don't have magic. There's no magic, in the world really. And just these fierce, mega creatures, like, giant animals and, mammoths and stuff. But it's like, it was really fun to think about that because it's, even in fantasy, it's like we're more, we can more relate to that, as a modern person than even like Stone Age people. How do you even think about Stone Age people? So that was really fun. That was really fun to do that. And it was an interesting game because we had it like it was really cold actually. So we had it like in an outrigger house type thing. They had a farm and it was like a shop type thing. And they had like, like a wood fire going. And I brought like, candles, like those little, not tea lights, but like the big kind of candles that they're just battery operated. They're not real candles, but put those all around. And so the atmosphere and the mood was really, and we're all like basically cold in there, it was actually cold in the room that we were playing in. So it was really an interesting experience, having, doing that. So yeah.
Was this like a wedding reception?
Well, it was like for the wedding and reception, they did like Viking games and stuff like that. So they did like kind of these races where they're like, what are they? Where they're like,
Highland game, not Highland games, but like
sort of
feats of strength type stuff.
Well, it wasn't strength. It was more like what are those races called where you trade off stuff? They kind of like that. The kids kind of play on their field days.
Oh, baton race?
Maybe something where they would trade off things, and then the other person would have to go back, and then they would do that. But they also had things like bragging contests where you just would go up and make some kind of BS up, and they vote on the best one who did it, and they had fun dances, and they did a lot of research on like stuff for it, and they tried to have food that was sort of traditional for that, and it was a lot of fun. We all wore costumes to it, so that was really cool. So yeah, that was fun. My friend actually dressed up as Doctor Who. He had the sonic screwdriver thing and the trench coat.
So
his wife dressed up, as like a Viking, but my wife and I did too. But he dressed up as Doctor Who.
So this is probably,
it was fun though.
15 plus years ago. Went to the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, and I thought it'd be hilarious to wear, like any true Star Trek fan, my Spock shirt and outfit, my uniform.
Oh yeah.
And the guy at the gate just looks at me and just shakes his head and hangs it, and he just points like, "Go in, just go in," because I thought it'd be because you can justify it. It's some sort of alternate universe. Then I'm watching. This is when it was maybe 1 or 2 seasons in. I'm watching The Big Bang Theory with my wife, and Sheldon at the beginning of the episode is complaining about all the inaccuracies at the Renaissance Fair, and then at the end of the episode, he's wearing his Spock costume, and I had already done it in real life before it was even a TV show, and I just stood up and just like walked out of the room like, what is my life? So I invented in my head that somehow the lore spread from, Minnesota to California, whoever screen wrote it, that some idiot wore his Spock outfit. But I did it first before Sheldon. I just want to make that clear.
Okay, yeah.
So the Doctor Who thing made me think about it. So. Well,
Gonna cut you a check.
Yeah. Where's my royalty? Well, I feel like I don't have too much more to say because this thing is such a tome. I think this would be perfect for somebody though that like you want to maybe pluck some ideas for your own city and not have to go through the work of like a general or kind of like developing a lot of this stuff. Or again, you could really pilfer this for just some unique ideas, or you could even run it as is and be like, hey guys, we're gonna spend some time in this city and have them explore street by street, place by place, and you could do that way. But
one thing that kept coming up today was when I was reading it was it would be excellent for a Conan type campaign.
Yeah,
so many of that type of plot hooks, and with the city and everything. I mean, it's kind of like Tower of the Elephant or one of those sort of Robert Howard stories.
Well, and I think the Overlord is like a level 20. Yeah, he's a level 20. I'm not sure what his class is. I can't see it on here. But again, like talk about an ultimate boss of like Conan type thing of taking on the evil Overlord, and but Crom doesn't really care. Crom just never gives a rip. It's not fair.
The other thing is there's all the temples in this city are evil. And they have all these really evil sort of priests and llamas, and llamas in this one. And, so that would again be really good for a Conan type story, I think. I think one thing it doesn't have that some of the later cities like Waterdeep or Sigil have is it doesn't have a lot of interesting places. It doesn't have squares and markets and fountains and all sorts of weird little things. It's just basically shop.
It's crammed.
Yeah. So I think that's one of its weaknesses, maybe. There's also a pretty dated number of tables on romance and women. Did you see that? Yeah. There's about 2 pages that would not fly today. I was just sitting there cringing.
It would be classified today as extremely problematic.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, speaking of extremely problematic, I can just hear the house shaking from grade school kids. A sleepover is actually a stay up all night over. So in order to stay happily married, I should probably cut us off. Okay. But thanks for joining us. Check out, I'm sure it's on DriveThruRPG or somewhere, if you're looking for a PDF of this. Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and somebody did all the work, or 2 guys did all the work to cram all this stuff in there. So there you have it. Scotty, thanks for hopping on. What a pleasant surprise.
Good to see you guys.
And Kemper, thanks for joining in. Everybody stay warm, stay alive, and don't freeze to death. Do whatever you can. So make sure you got a good furnace guy on call too. So,
yes. Sure.
Just about the time they always decide to kick off. So all right. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Night, guys.
Night.